The Supreme Court just delivered a crushing 9-0 unanimous blow to federal agents who think they're above the law. And this ruling changes everything for gun owners across America. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't already. It's the easiest way to support what we're doing here, and make sure you don't miss critical updates like this. A family had their door kicked in, flashbangs thrown inside, and were held at gunpoint because federal agents raided the wrong house. When they tried to sue, the government claimed total immunity. The GPS mistake that exposed everything. In 2017, an FBI raid team stood outside what they believed was a gang hideout in suburban Atlanta. Agent Lawrence Guerrera had the correct warrant with the proper address, typed clearly on official paperwork. But he made a choice that would eventually reach the Supreme Court. Instead of using the address verification systems that the FBI requires agents to use before tactical entries, he pulled out his personal smartphone and typed the address into a consumer GPS app. That app calculated a route and guided him to a residential street where Katrina Martin lived with her partner and their 7-year-old child. The agents never cross-referenced the target location, never verified the property against surveillance photos, never checked if the house matched the description in their intelligence briefing. At 6 a.m., they breached the door with a battering ram, deployed flashbang grenades designed for hostage rescue situations, and treated this family like armed terrorists. After handcuffing everyone and searching every room, an agent glanced at mail sitting on a table and realized the address didn't match their warrant. What the FBI did next reveals something far more dangerous. They decided to fight the family's lawsuit with every legal weapon available. The legal loophole designed to protect misconduct. The Federal Tort Claims Act was passed in 1946, specifically to allow citizens to sue the government when federal employees cause harm through negligence or wrongdoing. For decades before that law, the government operated under absolute sovereign immunity. You literally could not sue them no matter what they did to you. The FTCA was supposed to change that by waiving immunity in most situations. But over the following 70 years, federal courts carved out exception after exception that slowly turned the FTCA into Swiss cheese. By the time the Martin family filed their lawsuit, the government had developed a playbook for escaping liability in almost any situation. They'd argue that agents were making discretionary policy decisions, which triggers the discretionary function exception. They'd claim the actions were intentional law enforcement activities covered by the intentional tort exception. Lower federal courts had been accepting these arguments for years, creating a protection system that made it nearly impossible to hold federal agents accountable even for egregious mistakes. Legal scholars analyzing 11th Circuit decisions between 2015 and 2020 found that the government won dismissal in approximately 87% of FTCA cases before any evidence was even presented at trial. The Supreme Court just rewrote government accountability. When oral arguments happened at the Supreme Court, the government's attorney kept insisting that law enforcement needs flexibility and discretion to operate effectively, and that subjecting agents to state tort liability would create chaos in federal operations. Justice Gorsuch asked a question that cut through all the legal gymnastics. If a private security company broke into the wrong house using the same tactics, would they be immune from lawsuit under state law? The government attorney tried to dodge by saying federal agents face different circumstances. But Gorsuch pressed harder. Finally, the attorney admitted yes. That exchange revealed the core issue. The government wanted a special exemption from accountability that no private citizen or company would ever receive. Justice Gorsuch's written opinion specifically called out how lower courts had been misreading the FTCA for years, creating immunities that Congress never intended. The ruling established that federal agents must be held to the same liability standards as private citizens under state law, and that the discretionary function exception only applies to actual policy decisions, not to careless execution of basic tasks. This decision fundamentally resets the balance between government power and citizen rights after decades of erosion. The pattern of raids that never face consequences. Congressional testimony from 2021 revealed that the ATF doesn't maintain a centralized database of complaints related to raid misconduct, wrongful property seizures, or excessive force allegations. When Representative Thomas Massey questioned ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach about how many raids result in no charges filed, the director couldn't provide a number. That data apparently doesn't exist in any accessible format. This lack of tracking is intentional because accountability requires measurement. If the government doesn't officially count their mistakes, they can claim mistakes are rare. A 2023 analysis by the Institute for Justice examined federal court cases from 2018 to 2022 and found at least 47 documented cases where federal agents executed search warrants at wrong addresses, detained wrong individuals based on mistaken identity, or used force that resulted in injuries to people who were never charged with crimes. In 12 of those 47 cases, the government successfully claimed immunity and got the cases dismissed before trial. One case involved a military veteran in Arizona whose home was raided because an ATF database hadn't been updated to show he'd sold his firearms collection 3 years earlier. Agents broke his door, damaged property throughout the house, and detained him for 6 hours before realizing their records were outdated. Why federal agencies are panicking behind closed doors. Internal DOJ emails obtained through FOIA requests show that attorneys were circulating the Supreme Court's Martin decision within hours of it being published, with subject lines like "urgent review needed" and "major implications for pending cases." The reason for the panic is simple. This decision doesn't just affect home raid cases. It potentially opens up thousands of situations where federal agents previously hid behind immunity. Consider how federal agencies interact with citizens every single day. FBI agents who place people on no-fly lists without proper evidence. ATF agents who classify firearms as illegal and demand surrender without due process. Border Patrol agents who detain citizens for hours based on incorrect database information. The Martin ruling establishes that if a private person would be liable under state law for similar conduct, the federal government should be liable too. This is a fundamental shift in how federal power operates. Agencies are now reviewing their training procedures, updating their legal guidance, and budgeting for increased litigation. The action plan for protecting your rights now. This Supreme Court ruling creates new opportunities to hold federal agents accountable, but only if you understand how to use it before something happens. The Federal Tort Claims Act requires you to file an administrative claim with the specific federal agency within 2 years of an incident, and that claim must include detailed information about what happened. Start by installing comprehensive security camera systems that capture your property's entrances, driveway, and interior common areas. Teach your family members to remain calm during any federal agent encounter. Clearly state that you don't consent to searches, and document everything in writing as soon as agents leave. The Martin decision only protects people who actually assert their rights and document violations when they occur. This case is still moving through the 11th Circuit, and I'll be covering every single update as it develops because this affects all of us. If this breakdown helped you understand what's at stake, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts on this ruling, and subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up coverage. Share this with every gun owner you know because mainstream media isn't covering the real implications of this decision. Stay armed, stay informed, stay free.